Hey guys, welcome. You're at the Thrifty Journal Shop. I'm Amber. If you are new here, hello. Thank you for stopping by my channel. And thank you guys that keep coming back. You guys are the best. I think I just hit 2,000 subscribers. So it's just amazing. I love being here on YouTube. I love the community and all of the other awesome creators. I love all of you guys that watch my videos and leave comments and find inspiration and ideas and share. It's just wonderful, and I am just having a blast. So I'm going to continue to do it because I'm having fun. All right, today I thought I would just take you along. I want to create a trashy junk journal, but I also want to incorporate my junk planner in the journal. Now, I've never done that before. I've sort of just had a separate junk planner, and I don't want to get too much into that because I'll do that in a separate video. In fact, I think I have a playlist of, or not a playlist, but I know I have a video on this planner that I made. I think I made it with you. I will find it. I'll link it in the description. And I believe I have a video where I showed some of my other junk planners. If not, I'm going to do a completely different video because I'm going to take you along for the process of how I set it up and how I like to use it. I want to add some junk planner pages into this journal that we're going to make today. So once again, I am sort of just creating on the fly here. I do have some things set aside. I've got a few ideas, and I'm going to be using a kit here that I recently got from Miss Sweet Lynn over at A Bit of a Birdsong. If you guys don't know who Lynn is, I will link her channel. I've talked about her quite a bit here. Lynn is one of the very first people that I found here on YouTube. And so I have followed her probably since I found junk journaling, art journaling, altered books, I think in 2017. I've watched most of her videos, and I was pretty quiet. I never really commented much until I created my own channel. But thank you, Lynn, for just all of your ideas, your inspiration, sharing your journals, sharing some of your life and your cats, and just I can resonate with a lot of things that you say and share. So I appreciate that. So I have this beautiful fabric art kit that I got from her. And I'm not going to go through everything because I'm just going to show you parts of it as I use it. But look at this. Isn't this gorgeous? This little cluster. It included a bunch of fabrics. Beautiful. And I've made the cover with some of the fabrics. It came with some papers that I'm going to put in here. So as I use the stuff, I'll kind of say this is from the kit from Lynn. So thank you, Lynn, and I love your drawings. You actually really inspired me to take the step to drawing faces. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so I was going to make a junk planner journal out of another paper sack, but I thought, no, I really like using, right now this is sort of my trashy art journal, and I love this, my little house, but the pages aren't as big as I want it to be. I really do like full-size books. This isn't that big of a book. I love the cover of this, so I'm going to keep some of the cover that you can see, but I just have an idea in my head here. We're going to make the spine and everything. And we're doing some things that I haven't really done before, which I'm always really sort of excited about. So I have the cover in mind here. Now, this was part of the piece of fabric I got from Lynn. And inside the little kit is this sweet little bag with a bunch of different yarns and fabrics. And I just love it. So in this sort of style of hers, I thought, okay, I'm going to make just my own. So this is some of the fabrics. I had the sequence. I sewed a little button. I love birds, and I thought I'm just going to make that the centerpiece. And then this fabric is just beautiful. I love the color. So I am going to sew this onto here, and I'm going to glue it on the cover. And I really love all the color here from the book. And so I'm going to leave that. Like I said, this just sort of, I'm just kind of going with it here. So I am going to sew that. Then I think I'm going to tacky glue it. So let's work on the spine because I have an idea for that. So I already gutted the book, guys, and it's not pretty. I take a utility knife, take it apart, and then there's staples in this. So I just pull the staples out with pliers, and then I've got some of the pages here. So you do have that. A lot of times when I make journals, I'll just trim it and I'll hinge it together with another piece of paper just because I don't really like the look of that. But this is a trash journal. This is a journal for myself. So I'm not going to get really particular. So for the spine, I'm going to do a wraparound spine, but instead of using my chain stitch, I'm going to use duct tape. And I think the very first time I saw this bright pink duct tape was from Lynn. And so, yeah, we're just going to tape the spine onto the journal. So the spine I'm going to use is just a file folder, and I already cut it down. I'm just going to add a little glue stick here. And then I'm going to wrap this fabric around, and then we're going to attach this with duct tape. And that I've never done before. I've used duct tape on cardboard boxes, but I've not really used it on a harder back covered book. So let's just add some glue here. And these junk planners, this is an old book, and then I just added some really scrappy collage and fabric. I mean, this is so messy. Like I said, I will do a separate flip through of these if I haven't already, but I'll probably just redo it because I think it was over a year ago. And I really like this style. Now this, I just left the original spine and sort of pulled pages, but this, I want to add some extra papers. So I want to make my own spine. So for the fabric spine, I am just going to usually cut a little extra, and then I'll just roll it, and then I sew down here. That way you can't see the edges, and then I cut off the extra. So I'm going to go and sew that, and I'll be back. All right, so I've got the spine. So let's set this up. Okay. Yeah, let's see what happens here. Okay. And I'm not measuring. I'm just overlaying the duct tape here. All right. Okay. All right. And the file folder makes it so it's nice and you can, bend that. And we're going to put something on the cover. We're going to have this on the cover. So you can kind of see still the cookbook and the bright pink tape, and it's just going to be fun. Let's attach the back cover. And I believe this is at least a 4-inch spine. I know sometimes you guys are interested in knowing that. So sometimes I'll use my ruler and I'll just line these up when I go to glue my spines on before I do my chain stitch, just so it's even. Just eyeballing this. So I like to start from this side, but then my spine is a little bit longer than the book. So let's see. Let's maybe start in the inside here. All right. I'm going to cut some of this off. Usually I don't mind if my spine is a little bit longer than the book, but because we're wrapping tape around it, I'm just going to trim that off. All right. Okay, let's make sure that it's lining up. Okay. Okay. Now let's see. And then I usually bend the book here. We've got that nice flexible spine. And usually that's my test. If the corners line up a little bit, and you know, it doesn't have to line perfectly. Okay. Well, that is actually really cool. So I've never really used duct tape there to bind the spine. How easy is that? And you could just use a plain file folder, or I mean, you could paint the file folder. So we're going to see here if this is going to last or if we're going to have to do another little strip. I might add another piece. I'm going to overlay another piece here just because I figure why not. I haven't decided if I'm going to cover the inside or if I'm just going to leave this as is. All right. So now we have the duct tape. All right, so we have that. So we have the cover. Now I want this, and then I'm going to add that. All right. I do want to do some stamping. I want to stamp a word here. That's bothering me a little bit. The tape kind of like peeled there. So I want to put something there, but I am going to take this to my sewing machine and just sew this around. And then I'm going to try just using some tacky glue to put this on the cover. All right, I sewed that all around on this beautiful fabric here. And I think I want to stamp a little word. So I've got my alphabet stamp set here that I absolutely love. I've got a sheet of my painty paper here. So I am just going to, I think I'm just going to stamp nature. Okay, and then I just like to tear it here. That way I can cover up that little spot there. Maybe we'll have it right there. All right, let me get my tacky glue. Sometimes I'll sand these books if I'm going to add something. I am not doing that this time around. I want to see just doing things on the whim if this is going to work, which I think it should. I did glue a golden book cover to a binder journal, and I used tacky glue and my glue gun. So I'm thinking I might get my glue gun out and add a little glue also. Maybe to the corners. Okay. Let's add nature there. And it's lining up pretty good. You can always adjust the spine in the book here. But it looks to be lining up pretty good. And I'll work with it. Oh, I love it. It's just so funky. All right. We might have to let the cover dry a bit here. So let's let that set, let that dry, and we'll come back to that. As for now, I'm not going to do anything in the inside. I kind of like the bright yellow with the pink. I will probably add pockets because I like to add pockets to my junk journals. So I might do that, add a fabric pocket, but we can do that in a little bit. I'm going to get out the papers. So I have a selection of papers here. Some of these I pulled just from other books, and some of them I need to cut down. Some of them I need to hinge together. This was a highlights book that I recently got. So I'm going to actually use the cover and the journal also. So I have these. This was from a paper roll. I showed it before, like on one of Jeff's job sites. So I just kept it and I just cut down some sheets. So this will be perfect. This is some of the pages that I got from Miss Lynn out of the kit, her Korean test chart, and then these really cool pages. So I am going to hinge these together so they can go in there the full size. And then I've got this fun wallpaper also she sent. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm going to hinge those together. And I also have some of my painty papers. And some of them I might fold this way, but I do want the longer. So I'm going to hinge these together, which takes a little bit of time. And then I do have some of the original book pages from the cookbook I'm going to include. And then I've got some stationery. So I'm going to show you, and I've showed this before, but I'm going to just show you how I like to hinge my full-size papers together. I do this a lot for my glue books and my bigger book journals that I make. So I am going to cut these sheets down first, and then I'll show you how I hinge them together. Then we'll put the pages and the signatures into the spine. All right, I cut down all my pages, and I'm okay if they stick out of the journal a little bit. All right, so when I want to hinge papers together, I go about it a couple different ways. I've used fabric. Usually I use the offcuts. Like here are some of the offcuts from some of the Christmas journals I was making. So I'll just take some of these and then I'll fold them in half. So we'll use this one, and I can probably get actually 2 hinges out of it. Sometimes I use my scissors with the funny little edge. I just fold it in half and then I hinge them together. So a lot of times I'll use my sewing machine. I don't glue them anymore. I'll just take it over to my sewing machine and sew down here and sew on the back. I'm just going to show you how to do it without a sewing machine. It's very simple. You can just use your glue stick or whatever glue you have. And the glue will hold up. I just prefer to use my sewing machine. You want to leave a little bit of space in there just so when you go to poke your needle through there. Yeah, some of these glue sticks aren't the best, especially with acrylic paints, I find. So yeah, just want to leave a little bit of space there. Let's see, this isn't sticking. It's not sticking how I like it. It's probably why I usually just sew it, but we'll see if that works. And then I just trim off the edge here, and then you have your full size. This is not working. This glue stick is giving me a hard time today. So then you have your full size sheet, and that's how I hinge them together. I've used fabrics before with the same concept. You can take masking tape and run it around. It's just sometimes that gunks my needle up. Another really easy way to do it is to just take the sheet. You don't even have to hinge it. I just fold a little flap here and then take my other sheet and glue, then you'll have a little bit longer. That's okay. You can always fold that in or trim it off. So that is another way to do it. So I just add glue there, fold it over, and then, you know, you can always use like washi tape and just add some glue if you want, or you could use masking tape. Just brings more color too when you, you know, when you add other sheets of paper. I just like that look. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but this is not sticking. We'll probably add a little tape. It could be like the acrylic paint and the glue stick. This could just be like a bad glue stick. I don't know. So we'll see. That's how I hinge them together. Like I said, you can use masking tape. We'll do one with masking tape. Let's take these 2 sheets. I'm just going to trim this off. This is from the cookbook, and this is how they threaded through the signatures there with, they stapled it, and then I had to pull out these threads. This is some of my colored masking tape. I've showed you guys this before. I believe I got this on Amazon. I got, I don't know how many rolls, maybe 9 or so. And so this is another really easy way to hinge the papers. You sort of want to use half the tape on one side, line it up, maybe leave a little bit of a space, and then you're just bringing it over like that. And so the only thing is, if you do this to every single page and you have a lot of pages like this, it makes your signature a lot thicker. And then you just have to have a really great needle, because when you go to punch the hole, you know, you're dealing with sticky tape. Other than that, this works just fine. Okay, so that's how you can hinge papers together. Also, it doesn't have to line up very precisely. When I'm making them for myself, I'm less conscious of that. All right, so I am going to go and hinge all the full-size pages, and I will be back. All right, guys, I am back, and I put all of my pages together. I either hinge them with masking tape or some construction paper. I did sew down on the paper. It's just easier for me to do that than using glue. So I have 3 signatures here, and most of the pages are elongated. I have a few that I folded like that. So lots of fun papers in here, and I am going to show you how I'm going to bind this. They should all fit in there. That's what's nice about when you give yourself a little bit bigger of a spine. It makes the journal a little longer, so then your pages, you know, you've just got some more room. So I am just going to show you how I'm going to do this. This is a template that I've used for another journal, and a lot of times I'll use lined paper or graph paper. Sometimes I reuse them. I know this looks kind of crazy because it's not really even here, and I've, you know, marked some dots and then you know, scratched them off. This is usually what I do, is I use a template, and I've got my awl here, and I do have some like cardboard underneath here. A lot of times for bigger pages, I will do like a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. 3 would probably be fine. If I'm going to be adding lots of layers, sometimes I just want a little bit more stability. So I've got 5 here. And I did write T up here for the top. And so I am just going to, I'm going to do 5 holes, and I'll show you how I sew in one, and then I'll do the rest off camera. So I take my awl, I poke here, I'm going to foul these dots here, and I do use my ruler and measure. That's why I like to use lined paper, because I can, you know, put the dot on the line here. Everybody does this differently. There are lots of great tutorials out there. Okay, and then I'll just take my awl and I'll sort of go back through and make the holes a little bit bigger so I can see them. Depending on the fabrics, and you just want to watch your finger. You know, sometimes dark fabrics, it's hard to see your holes, right? With a darker fabric, I just try to go back through and make my hole a little bit larger so I can see it. Definitely be careful with your fingers. I sort of feel here and kind of go with it. Okay, so a lot of times I made sure all my papers lined up. And like I said, most of these are all the same size. If I have different size papers, then I go through and make sure they're lined up where I like them. And then I usually just use some paper clips, put one on the top and one on the bottom. I've done this long enough now that this is just my preferred way to do this part. There are many different ways. You know, I used to take my piece of paper and line it in here and use a phone book. And yeah, now this is the way that I like to do it. So I line it up and I usually start from the back and then work my way up to the front. And I just make sure that the pages are lined up. They're not sticking over, you know, the book. Like I can see some of these are a little bit longer. All right, I trim down the pages a little bit. And so I just line it up and make sure that, like I said, it's in between the book. And I take my awl and I basically, I eyeball it. Okay. I sort of look inside the journal, look where the dot is, and poke my holes. I have found this method to be a really great method. Okay. And that's what I do for this one. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for the middle. I make sure to paper clip them. Let me get some paper clips. I am paper clipping here. Make sure everything is lining up. All right, some of these pages are a little bit longer than the other, but they should fit in the book. And then I'm just gonna line this up. This is gonna be the middle signature. So I'm lining it up, making sure I can see my holes. And then once again, I am eyeballing it. You do it long enough, sometimes it doesn't come out exactly, but it's a little different here doing it on camera. Trying to make sure I'm on camera. All right, and then this is going to be the first signature. I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'll be back to show you how I sew one of them in. All right, I just got some waxed thread and I do 2 and then some, maybe more like 3 lengths of the book. All right, and then this is just my preferred needle. Now I like to start from the outside. So I like my strings on the outside. Sometimes I'll add beads. It's just preferred than having them in the inside. A lot of times I'll just sort of poke in the inside just to see where my needle is. And I like to start in the back. And so I'm going to start here in the back, pull it through, I leave a tail, then once again, I am finding the middle. So, and you can use, you know, 2 needles. Sometimes I'll use a needle just to see where it's at with 1 needle, and then I'll bring my second needle in from the back, if that makes sense. I have gotten to like this part of making a journal more than I did in the past. I think it just takes practice and just doing it. Trial and error. Sometimes things don't line up exactly, and that's okay because this is a junk journal. All right, now I go up, so I'm going up to the next hole, going through, you know, like I said, it's a little bit more difficult when you have masking tape and all of that. And I'm going into the next hole, okay, and I am pulling here, all right, and just leaving a tail. Now I'm going into the next hole, all right. Next hole. And then I'm going to go through my signature. Now, this paper here, I can tell it's a little split here. I probably should have hinged that one together, but that's okay. I'll show you how you can do that after, because now it's hard for me to see where. There we go. I had to sort of work through it. Okay. We're pulling through there. All right. Make sure that we have a tail here. And now I'm going to go back through this same hole. All right. And you just want to make sure that you don't go back through your thread. Like, you don't want to splice your thread, because when you do that, and I do it a lot, and you can tell when you go to like tighten, because you won't get a good pull. All right. So you can kind of tell. All right, now I'm going to skip this hole because I'm going to go through there at the end because I started there, and I'm going to go down to the next hole. And like I said, sometimes I'll look back in here, and this is where I would poke. I'd take another needle there, okay, just so I can see where my hole is, because it's hard to see sometimes with fabric. And I lost my clip here. Yeah, this isn't pretty. It's just, I didn't pick the best paper. This paper is a little bit harder of a time here. All right, with that sheet of paper. Okay. So I went through that one. Now I'm going down to the next hole. And I'm going back through this hole, pulling. All right, and now I'm going back through this hole. All right, I keep getting interrupted here. Okay, so we're gonna go back through that same hole, making sure not to, you know, go through that same thread. Okay, and then I just sort of like to give a little bit of a pull here, and I can kind of tell if everything is good. Sometimes when you can sort of pull, you know that you might have spliced the thread, which I think I did. So I'm going to pull this back out, all right, and see if I've got a good pull here. Yeah, that's what's tricky sometimes. So I'm just going back through that same hole, trying not to go through my thread, all right, pulling up and then taking a look here. Looks to be nice and tight. So now the very last hole, I'm going to go back through the center where I started, making sure not to splice the thread or spice the thread. Oops. Trying to go through the same hole, all right? Sometimes, and I might not have went through the exact same hole, Yeah, this craft paper that's rolling is very difficult. Going through the same hole, or trying to, all right, and then I just pull here, okay, and I like to have one of the strings on one side and one on the other, all right, and then I tie a square knot, okay, and I go the opposite way. And then I've just got into the habit of adding a little dab of glue, all right? And then I like to tie a bow. And I guess a double knot bow. And then I put another little dollop of glue here. And you don't have to tie a bow, you can just leave it with a knot. All right, and then I've got this extra here if I want to add beads, okay, or I'll trim them off. And then let's take a look here. I remove my clip, and you know, everything's nice and tight in here. We've got a good secure. Sometimes I'll, you know, give it a little shake. Now, I should have maybe hinged this paper, but that's okay. We'll just add some duct tape to it, or masking tape. All right, so we have one of our signatures in, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the other two off camera because it's sort of the same thing, and then I'll be back with everything complete. All right, guys, I am back here. I'm just loving this journal. I mean, it's always so much fun to have a new journal. Sometimes it's a little bit of an undertaking when you're making a journal, but then I love just making journals for myself because it's so fun, and I can just do it any which way. And so, yeah, it looks like the duct tape is holding up here on the spine. I don't like how it's tearing there, but I might do some more to the cover here on the back. But it looks like it's sticking here to the fabric. We'll see. This is just, we're trying something different here. And I love how this cover looks with the little bird, and then just all like the fabric elements and the texture. And the tacky glue is holding up very nicely. The little nature that I stamped there. So it's just fun to see the colors from the cookbook. And then let's look inside here. There is lots of pages. I am going to add some pockets, but I'll take you along for that. And the next time we meet, I'm going to set up my planner. So I will show you some of my other planners in that video, how I've done it in the past. But this is going to be new because I'm going to use this as sort of a daily journal, or my trash journal, or just however I want to do it. Then I'm going to set up my planner pages and sort of talk about that. I don't know if I'll do like the whole year. I don't always work like that. I know I need at least up until May. So I do a lot of like house sitting, pet sitting, and I'm starting to get jobs, and I have it written down, but I like to have it in my planner. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of space in here. Love all the longer pages that I have. And yeah, so this is my new trashy junk journal, junk planner. And I just think it's really cool. So thank you, Lynn, for this beautiful kit. I absolutely love it. Thank you for all the inspiration. And I hope this gave you guys some ideas. And I will see you real soon. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you find some sunshine, and I hope you find some creative space, time for yourself. All right, I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.